Now let's turn, Christine, to what I would say is easily one of the most talked about games of the year, one of the most hyped games, one that people were looking very forward to. And given how many games that have been pushed back and canceled, this may be sort of like potentially the biggest game of the year. Possibly.
Yes. I think all of the things that you said are completely correct.
We are talking about The Witcher 3.
The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This game is complicated. It's beautiful. It's long. It doesn't really talk down to the players. But first of all, let's get to the number one question people have asked me about this game. If you haven't played the other two Witcher games, can you play this game? Obviously, the hype machine for this, as you said, Moment, was giant going into this.
Huge, yeah.
And I am somebody who has never played the Witcher game. I saw this at E3 last year, and I was like, this is happening. I have to play this game. But I also was concerned. Can I go in absolutely blindsided and play this game? The answer is a resounding yes, you can. They do have a really nice introduction to the game, which kind of brings you up to date on the last two games. You're still playing as Geralt of Rivia, who has been the main character through the entire series. And it kind of leads you through the first game, the second game, to where you are now.
So they basically Mass Effect.
Yeah, they really do. And even in conversations where you meet, because you meet a lot of people that you have met in previous games, they do not a heavy-handed recast of what's happened, but they have it in kind of a conversational way where he's like, so what have you been doing since we last did this? Oh, well, I'm doing this. You remember when we did that?
How's the kids?
Yeah, but it doesn't really feel forced. It feels like it should, like it's an introduction, and this is what it is for people who've never known. There are times, especially in the first few hours of the game, where conversations happen, and I really wish that I had played the previous games, because I know I would definitely get more out of the conversation. There's actually one conversation you have with someone, and they ask you questions about the previous games, and I had to guess. I'm like, I'm guessing that's what I did? And his responses were, okay. So I don't know if I guessed correctly or if I didn't guess correctly.
Seems like a rather needless little interaction there.
Well, what I thought about it later was maybe that's the way the game judges whether or not you played the other ones or not. Like, maybe it's kind of like, all right, she doesn't know this, because this game is so deep. Like, it has so many levels to this game that it really wouldn't surprise me if they're like, oh, okay, this person doesn't know this backstory about that. So maybe when this other character connected to it comes in, we will have the option for them to ask, so what have you been doing since we last invaded wherever?
Is that how everybody starts every conversation? No. What have you been doing since we talked like 5 minutes ago?
No, thankfully it isn't. Like I said, this game definitely does not talk down to its players. One of the things, though, it's impossible not to notice how beautiful this game is. The Witcher is breathtaking at times, and I can't even. It's so beautiful. Like, there are scenes where you're on your horse and you're at the top of a mountain and the sun is setting, and at times it's so bright, it's almost like too bright to watch your television because they've just blasted you with sunlight in the face.
That's good to hear, though, because I remember when this game first came out like 2 weeks ago, a lot of people were complaining about the graphics. They said it was downgraded in some way.
Yeah, on the Xbox, I'm supposed to be the lowest of the systems. Well, apparently PC had a lot of problems with it as well, but patches have come out for the PC already. But I had absolutely no problem with these graphics. I have a pretty decent television, and I didn't feel like I was losing anything at all with this. I mean, the colors were beautiful. The life was beautiful. Like, the scenery of it all was just, it was gorgeous. The art department, bravo. You've made a beautiful looking
Kristen's
game.
Actually clapping.
Yeah. I am. It's really stunning. And, because you're in such a mythical world where things like griffins exist, and, they really went out of their way to make them look as realistic as possible, like what it would look like if you were fighting a griffin.
Okay, so they made a realistic looking world. What do you do in it?
You can kind of do anything in this game. It's huge. It's massive. Like, I can't overstate the fact that it is massive. It is apparently 20% bigger than Skyrim, and I thought Skyrim was the biggest game I would ever play in my life.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would ever think when they played Skyrim that, someday I'm going to play a game that's bigger than this.
The thing that I really like about this game, too, is that the towns are big, too. Like, some of them are small little villages, but when you go into cities, you're in a city.
Yeah,
like, thankfully, it would take you forever to go in and steal things from every business and walk in and explore. So not all of the buildings you can go into, but just the scope of them and walking around, like it really feels like you're in the town and you really kind of get to know where everybody is.
I love how I asked about interactions with the world, and Christine's first remark about what you can actually do is go from town to town stealing things.
Well, that's what I always
That's
do.
not what you do when you go to new cities and new towns? No.
That is how I play my RPGs.
I've been with you in Los Angeles. I know differently.
So there's lots of things to do in this game. Obviously, most of it again is fighting. You go through. There's fetch quests. There's escort quests. There's destroying beautiful creatures. There's solving mysteries. All the kind of fantasy RPG things that you would expect in a game like this.
Now, how difficult is the gameplay? Because I remember previous games, even though I haven't played them, just doing research on them for, say, this segment of the show and stuff like that, they were really difficult in the sense that, okay, here's this one guy. You have 3 different swords. You got to make sure you're using the right sword.
Yep.
You got to make sure you're using the right potion on yourself. Yep. And you have to, mix the potion yourself. And if you don't get the right ingredients, you can't mix the right potion. Yeah. That, Christine, sounds tedious.
It's all still there. You have 2 different swords. They do 2 different things. Definitely, if you pick up this game, play the tutorial. I cannot overemphasize how good it is to play the tutorial, because even the fighting mechanics are very complicated. There's 6 or 7 different ways you can fight people, and they'll give you tutorials on how to do your magic and how to shoot crossbow as well. You basically get the gamut of how to play an attack. And it is at times a little complicated and a little overwhelming at first, but I found it was, I guess by maybe hour 10, I was in the zone. I could figure it all out. I was like, yep, I know how to fight these things, of course. And then somebody would come over and kill me. The interesting thing, though, that one of the ways that I really do wish that this game was better when it comes to potions and crafting, because when you look at games like Skyrim, they've really made it more of an interactive experience, where this just kind of, you gather things and you just kind of click something and it makes the fancy potion that you need. And I like to have a little more interaction with my potions. I like to kind of find one by accident and, oh, look, this can do this. Whereas in The Witcher, you kind of walk around and you can find recipes as you're stealing things from other people's houses. You can steal recipes.
A lot of stealing in your gameplay.
Well, it's looting. That's the staple of how you get anything in
every
RPGs.
Game has it. They just call it
loot.
Call it looting, which really is just a fancier word for it. Well, actually, it's not really fancier. It's maybe lowbrow.
Yeah, but you loot from a chest in an abandoned cave. You don't go into a city.
That chest is somebody's.
That's
just
right.
There randomly. It belongs to somebody.
Except for
that's somebody stuff.
The chest is supposed to be blind to the skeleton that's right beside it, who he won't need anymore. Christine's just you walk in the first city.
But my bet is that the person who is now a skeleton stole it from somebody. I don't think the skeleton person is the original owner.
You want to know what? We don't even have time to have this argument. Christine, please continue.
I forget. So I wish that the crafting system was a little bit more complicated, I guess is what I'm looking for. Where this game really, really shines is in the missions. The missions are at times exceptionally long. There are some missions where it's don't start this if you're just going to play a couple hours. Because I just finished a mission this morning that I started yesterday morning, and then only to find out that I had to finish another quest to actually get the ending of this. So I have to go and do another quest to get that, but I'm fine with it because the complications, the kind of detail that they bring into these quests is kind of miraculous. You can definitely tell that these are taken from books because it's got such depth and the characters are so interesting, and it's not just a simple, oh, my wife has run away. What do I do about this? The backstory behind these characters are just even ones that I don't think I'll ever see for the rest of the game, but I know so much about them. They've taken such detail into it, and that is what I hope more RPGs do, and what I think a lot of RPGs kind of slip to the side for more battle-oriented things. I mean, there's still too much battle in RPGs now for my liking, but everything is just so interesting.
I love that. I love that they gave minor characters big, nice backstories.
It's fascinating. I do wish you could talk to a few more people in the town. You kind of have to walk around and try and talk to everybody, because sometimes you'll unlock quests that you would have absolutely had no idea of getting until you were just oh, I'm talking. And sometimes 2 people are talking in the corner, and if you're listening in, that'll unlock a new thing. There's so much to do in this game. It is kind of a fascinating game. It gives me great hope between this and Dragon Age Inquisition. I have great hope for the future of RPGs on the system.
Does it suffer from the same, I would say, not just Oblivion, I would say it's the Elder Scrolls sort of franchise issue of the same character talking to himself in terms of the world. All the Elder Scrolls games, they seem to be populated so people.
Yeah, a guy who took an arrow to the knee.
Yeah, and he's talking to the other guy who's the same dude. it's always like the same guy talking to the same guy in that series of games, like literally talking to himself, even though they are two different characters. I was just wondering, how populated is the world of The Witcher? Do you have that sort of same issue?
There are a few times where there's a few peasants who always kind of have the same sort of conversation, but I do find that they're not so frequent that I've noticed them. And I've played the game for now, I want to say at least 30 hours. And I haven't really found it tedious that they were so repetitive. So,
right.
And I think it also has to do with, especially in the smaller towns are only populated by maybe 10 people. So, and usually when they're talking, it's something definitely to do with that neighborhood, with that area, or just about being poor. Right. So it doesn't get to the point where it's an ongoing joke, like an arrow to the knee or something like that. And that, again, I think is to a credit of really how detailed this game has gotten, where they've looked at what other games have done, I assume, and they've said, all right, well, let's not do that.
So we only have about a minute left on this episode of Got Games, so let's get your final summation and the delivery of the score. Did this game live up to the hype that was promised?
It did. It lived up to it and perhaps surpassed it. I was going to walk in. I expected this game to be good. I expected to like this game right off the bat, and first of all, it was way harder than I thought it was going to be. And that made me like it more, though, because I thought I would just walk in. There's 5 different levels of difficulty. So depending on how good or bad you are,
what kind of a glutton for punishment you are?
That's exactly right. Yeah. I like that it had that variety. There was lots of action. There was lots of conversation. It's a beautiful game. I'm excited there's already, obviously DLC coming, and I'm going to give it a 9.5. It was really, really good. And I encourage people, again, if you haven't played the Witcher series, get it. Go out. Look it up.
Game of the year so far?
Maybe. It's definitely in the top 5.